Howdy folks, Greyhawk 4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. Today is the first day of my retirement, first full day. And I gotta tell you, it's amazing how much energy I have today. Like, I was able to go out and do a bunch of stuff I needed to do for the wife. Here I am, I'm gonna make my video. I just got, you know, a lot of, having that weight off your shoulders and that stress off your brain, it makes a world of difference. So, let's get caught up now on our D&D campaign back here, because I skipped a couple of weeks, I think. I think we had to skip a week because we had a couple of people out, and then we had the shutdown, so I just haven't done a video in a couple of weeks prior to yesterday's. So, let's get caught up. If you recall, our heroes have been making several forays back and forth into the Temple of Elemental Evil. It is not an easy... First of all, it's a mega dungeon. It's a gigantic place. And unless they're severely overpowered and over-equipped, it's required that they go in and out. It just is. So, on their latest foray into the temple, they had, to kind of recap, they had found a new character of ours that turns out he's playing a magic user, and he was getting ready to be a troll's dinner right when they happened upon him, and they happened to kill the troll, and they rescued him, got him geared up, etc. So they go back in to try and continue clearing this dungeon, basically wanting to get all of the loot that they can, smite the evil, all those good things and all that. However, there was a side plot always that of the Shade, if you recall, where there had been a call that had gone out to the realms in need of adventurers, because there was this entity calling itself the Shade that had taken over this local, what do you call it? Not a baron. Anyway, he's a royalty dude. I can't think of the title right now. But his castle, his keep had been taken over by this entity called the Shade, that said if it didn't get all of its tribute that it felt it deserved, that it was going to continue to kill people. And people had been inside, servants and such had been disappearing inside the castle. So the let's just say the Baron, for lack of a better term, because I can't think of the other one right now. So this Baron guy, he takes everybody out, evacuates the place and sets up another headquarters. Our adventurers get there, tell them, and they say, "Hey, here's what's going on." They go in and they get to the bottom of what's going on with the Shade. There's this, in fact, this entity called the Shade, which doesn't appear to be undead or dead or alive, if that's possible. And it's basically communicating that, hey, I want my tribute, meaning he wants all of the artwork and personal effects that were looted from this place at some time, whether it was centuries ago, whatever. He wants it all restored so that he can rest in peace and whatnot. And so our adventurers agree to investigate it, and they find out that, in fact, one of the right-hand persons to this Baron guy had been deceiving him all along and was actually working for the Temple of Elemental Evil. And they were taking these tributes and so forth that had been brought from, that this Baron had called out to the lands to have all this stuff brought, gold and jewelry and artwork and all this stuff brought back, and they were giving it, they thought they were giving it to the Shade, but it was actually being smuggled out to the temple, because this person had infiltrated his castle and became one of his confidants. So our adventurers find all this out, and in the process they capture one of the temple workers that was helping to load up the carts and so forth that were taking stuff out through an underground tunnel and they capture this guy, and he basically promises, hey, I've seen this side of it, and there's nothing for me on this evil side. It's nothing but death and despair that it comes to. I'm ready to turn my life around, whatever. So our cleric Mo, she says, well, if you do that, if you devote yourself to Cuthbert and our calling, we'll spare your life, etc. So he's been with them now. He's been helping them. And that kind of gets you caught up on the whole shade thing. And he had been telling them all along that, as far as he knew, when they would load the carts up for stuff being smuggled to the temple, as far as he understood, on the other end, at the temple, the stuff was being unloaded, or I take that back, that the carts were going a distance, short distance underground, coming, then there was a hatch or whatever, it come up, and it would get loaded onto wagons. And then the wagons would head to the temple, and that they would be unloaded at the temple somewhere. And through the rumor mill, from talking to the guys that he would see, that it was like at the abandoned guard tower or whatever, where this stuff was being unloaded. Now he's been telling our party this off and on. He's been reminding them of this, but they've been choosing to go into the temple proper, and they've been going through all these battles and clearing rooms and all this other stuff. And this last session, as the DM, I made everybody do a wisdom check, and I said, somebody made their check, and I said, your character kind of goes, well, wait a second, let's take a step back here, and wasn't this guy here? Wasn't he telling us about, where they were taking all this stuff? Because that's one of the things they want to do. They want to get all this stuff, take it back to the Shade, because if they can get the Shade to that issue taken care of, then the Baron has offered them this reward, big reward. And so they kind of want to do that. So our character, I think it was the illusionist that made his check, and he says, maybe we should listen to this guy, and maybe we'll check out that tower, So they decide to do that. Let me back up a little bit. Before the tower, they had found a really nasty room. And in that nasty room, and I don't want to give too much away because it would be spoilers and so forth, but let's just say, in that nasty room, they disturbed the guardian of the room. They triggered a couple of traps, which were nasty. And then they even one of the traps summoned a demon. And the particular demon that they summoned got 5 attacks per round. Claw, bite, rear claws. 5 attacks. And that was a nasty sumbitch. They managed to survive all of that, and that's when they decided to retreat after surviving all of that. And that's when they said, after regrouping, they said, well, let's check out the tower just to see if perhaps, what he's saying is true. And so they investigate the tower, and of course there are bandits that are mercenaries that are hired by the temple that are patrolling that whole area. And so they attack, and there's crows that are on guard crows that are on top of the tower that they've encountered before, and those numbers have since been replaced. So they had to fight the crows, and they had to fight the bandits all simultaneous, a big battle. So they managed to do all of that, and they get inside the tower again, and sure enough, there's a pile of discarded artwork and different things. There's even there's a bust inside of a trunk, and it has a name that is same surname as the Shade, the name that the Shade gave. And it may be one of his ancestors, who knows, but it's starting, and there was a lot of druidic art pieces and symbols and things like that also in the hoard of stuff. But a lot of it's paintings and candelabra and just different types of artwork and stuff like that. So they make the assumption that, well, this must be the stuff that the Shade wants to get back, and these knuckleheads here didn't know what to do with it when there was no gold, there was no platinum, there was none of that left, but all this artwork and miscellaneous stuff was still there. So they decided, well, we're going to take this stuff back to the Shade. So they start traveling back to the Shade, and they had to camp. They camped. I think I checked for like 3 nights, and they, like on the second night or something like that, they had an encounter where there was a couple of people on guard duty. One was our magic user thief, and I'm trying to remember who the other one that was on guard duty, but anyway, there was a couple of them on guard duty, and they hear some noise like an animal or something like that, and they smell something, and it turns out to be a couple of grizzly bears, big grizzly bears that are infiltrating the camp. They're looking for food. They smell food. They smell humans. They smell who knows what, but they're coming at them, you know. And the one guy, our one Atal is his name, his character's name. He decides, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the player said, yeah, my guy's just going to walk out to where the bears are. Just going to walk out to where the bears are. He just walked out there and stood there. The bears attacked. They won initiative. They attacked. And the first attack, I think it was, I rolled a crit. Now, bears in first edition, get claw, bite. But then I think it's on each claw attack, you have a chance if you roll, I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's a secondary roll, but if you roll within certain numbers, it does a bear hug attack. And that's what happened. And that was what I critted on, which is double damage. The way I DM, I just automatically do double damage on crits, on natural 20s. And it just took him out. I mean, he was -2 armor class, -2 hit points, so he's unconscious and bleeding to death. Of course, the commotion wakes everybody else up. They end up killing the one bear, but the druid that's in the party, he's able to speak with animals, and he's able to use that to befriend the bear, according to the spell, which is basically becomes a permanent companion to the druid if they do that. And that's what happened. So he gets a pet bear, a grizzly bear out of the deal, which for a druid is like awesome, right? But they had to heal up the one dude, but now they've got a pet bear and everything. So they continue traveling on, and whether it's the next night or the night after, whatever it is, they have another encounter. And I believe it was even the druid that was on guard duty, if I remember correctly. And I rolled for random encounters, and I get one, and I roll for what the encounter is, and it is a Trent. It is one of these guys. Now, I wanted to show this figure because I think it's a very well done figure. Let's see if I can get there. We go. I just like the detail on that guy. I mean, that is badass. Now, I haven't painted it yet, obviously. I haven't painted it yet, but I'm going to. They knew this Trent. They had an encounter with this guy before. So, and he knew they were friendly to the forest, so obviously he didn't attack. And they have a little dialogue. And I just kind of threw it out there because, and mind you, this was all done by the dice. I didn't make any of this shit up or whatever until this part. I decide, well, the Trent is going to see the bear, the pet bear, and he's going to know the bear. It's his forest. The bears are in the forest. He knows that bear. And he says, oh, hi, I see you. Hi, Twig. He calls the bear, that's his nickname for the bear, Twig. And he says, how did you become, he asked the druid, how did you come to know Twig? How did you, befriend him? And the druid truthfully says, well, they attacked us and, so forth. And then the Trent says, well, where's Branch? Which would be the name for the other bear, his nickname for the other bear. He goes, I've known them since they were cubs. Which would make sense for the Trent of the forest, right? To know these bears since they were babies, since they were cubs. And of course, now the party is shitting themselves because they're like, fuck, this Trent knows those bears and has known them since they were babies. Holy crap. And the druid, and the rest of the party, I believe, they, to their credit, they're honest, and they say, look, they attacked us. We had to defend ourselves, and unfortunately the other bear was killed. And the only question that Trent has for them is, he says, well, it's unfortunate. I understand you had to defend yourself. Please tell me you at least did not waste the life by not taking the meat and the hide to make furs from, and so make sure that it didn't go to waste, which they never specifically said that they were taking the meat and everything else, but I allowed them to basically through dialogue explain that they had. That one was kind of a freebie because they didn't specifically say they were doing that, but they had a habit of, in the past, especially with wildlife and stuff, always taking the meat. The one illusionist has a pet, what the heck's it called? Pseudo dragon, which eats meat, and they usually give the game meat to the pseudo dragon, however you say it. And so I allowed them. That one was kind of a freebie. I could have been a dick about that. I could have said, well, you guys didn't say you harvested shit. And I could say, hey, the Trent went back and found his body there, completely wasted. And that, of course, would have pissed the Trent off. But that one was kind of a freebie. But, sometimes you gotta play it that way as a DM. But, so that little bit of flavor there just happened organically about the fact I just thought of it. I was like, well, what if he knew the bears? And I came up with those names, Twig and Branch. I just came up with that shit. And so that was kind of that's how we ended the night. They ended up camping after that, and that was where we ended. But that gets you guys up to speed on what's been happening in the campaign. And no, not beer today yet. It's not beer 30 yet for me. But I'm having this new Mountain Dew. This is the mystery flavor for this year, the Voodoo. They do this every year. They have a mystery flavor. They don't tell you what it is, and you got to try and guess. There's definitely cherry, but it has a bubblegum finish. So I'm going to say that it is a cherry, what we used to call blow pop, because it's got bubblegum inside the top. It's a lollipop. It's a sucker. But inside there, when you get to the center, there's chewing gum. There's bubble gum. So they call them Tootsie Pops too. That's the name brand. So I'm going to say cherry Tootsie Pop or cherry blow pop. That's my guess for this year's flavor. We'll see if I'm right. I have no idea. They don't tell you until Halloween. That's when they reveal it. So, but anyway, guys, that is the update on the campaign. We are not playing today. And we had a couple people that were not feeling well, so got to postpone for today. But we should be playing next week. So, but now that I'm retired, tomorrow I'm going to come up with a topic, and we're going to have some content tomorrow too. So, until tomorrow, guys, we will catch you on the flip side.